Welcome to tonight's program, Hidden Gems, 10 Beautiful Places in India, a part of the Discover India series. This program series is brought to you through a partnership between the India Association of Greater Boston, the Shishu Bharati School, and the Burlington Public Library, and with the participation of public libraries in Acton, Andover, Marlborough, Tewkesbury, and Westford. I would like to thank the members of the India Association of Greater Boston and Rupesh Mathur, our presenter for the night, for the generous donation of their time and knowledge to make this series happen. You're invited to join us for the next program in this series, The Story of Paisley and How to Draw It, on Monday, May 2nd, starting at 7 p.m. If you enjoyed tonight's program, I would also invite you to tell a friend about it and help us spread knowledge of India's many cultural wonders. Tonight's program will be a presentation followed by a question and answer session. In order to ask questions, please feel free to do so at any time using the Q&A feature within Zoom, and your questions will be answered at the end of the program, time permitting. Joining me is Vaishali Gade, President of the India Association of Greater Boston, who will introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, I'm Vaishali Gade. Good evening, all. I'm the president of India Association of Greater Boston, IGB. It's one of the oldest organizations in New England area for Indian Americans to foster social, cultural, and community presence in New England area, as well as we strive to unify this diverse culture of ours in America. IGB, in collaboration with Shishu Bharati, an elite Indian languages school in New England, the Burlington Public Library, and the Indian Consulate General of New York are proud to present Discover India series, bringing you some unique and interesting topics. Now about our presenter tonight, Rupesh Mathur. Rupesh Mathur lives in Salem, New Hampshire. He's a product manager by profession. He enjoys learning and teaching culture, history, and philosophy. He is also very much interested in technology and its impact on the real world, which led him to create a 3D printing project. And via this project, he has created many masks and shields during the pandemic and helped many. Rupesh teaches Indian culture at the Shishu Bharati School in Nashua. So here we are. Fasten your seatbelts. Get ready to visit 10 beautiful places, hidden gems of India. Captain Rupesh, we are ready.
Thank you, Vaishali, and thank you, Mike, and welcome everybody to this session. I hope this will be as enjoyable for you as it was for me in putting it together. Right? So these are all beautiful, beautiful places, and really happy to share them with you. Let me just get started. So I have a slideshow mode. At the end of this presentation, I think some of the these slides will be put up as a link by the Burlington Public Library, so you should be able to access all the information that I have in here. So there's a lot of links I put in there because obviously, if you want to go there, you got to start somewhere. So I'm hoping that all the links that I have in there will help you there. So with that, let me just start on the topic. So these are 10 unknown beautiful places in India, right? So those of you who know something about India know that it has many different cultures and languages and places, but it also has a lot of geographic diversity. And this geographic diversity is amazing. And I hope that you learn something about that and something about the culture that extends, that has a very long history going back thousands of years. So with that, I'm going to get started. So the tourism campaign for India run by the Indian government has the tagline Incredible India, and our sponsor is Consulate General of India, right? So I got to talk about this, right? So basically, when we talk about Incredible India, we are talking about one of the most diverse countries, if not the most diverse countries on planet Earth, which has 16 main languages, hundreds of different dialects, many different cultures, and philosophies that go back thousands of years. So India is one of the most amazing countries in the world to visit as a tourist. And we are very fortunate that we got a chance to grow up there. So people who come to India, they come to see monuments like the Taj Mahal, right? So you see Taj Mahal is one of the most famous and most visited monuments in the world. They also come to experience the culture. So we have dance, music, arts. So many people come to see and experience those arts and cultures. Many people come to sample the food, right? So when some of you might have gone to Indian restaurants around here and have seen the incredible food that's available. but that's only a fraction of what you can get when you go to India, right? So when you go to India, there are people who go there and they just eat their way across India, right? So it's amazing food, amazing culture, amazing monuments, and there's a lot of history. So you have lots of palaces, lots of forts, lots of historic places associated with people like Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, who's one of the most famous apostles of peace in the world. So you can go to all of these places and you can experience it for yourself, right? So it's that way, it's an amazing place to visit. But if you look at where most people go, they go to a few places. So the maximum number of tourists who visit India go to this area in North India. As you can see, it is bounded by New Delhi, which is the national capital of India, Jaipur, which is a historic place, and Agra, which is where the Taj Mahal is. So there's a lot of tourist facilities, hotels, tours, transportation, a lot of things, a lot of facilities available there that allow you to experience that area. And it's a really amazing area. For instance, on the top right is something called a palace on wheels. It's a train, which is also a palace. It's an opulent ride, the most opulent ride in a train ride that you can ever find. You can ride camels and so on. We also have in India, we have beautiful beaches. So in the 1960s, when the counterculture started, this place on the left is Goa, became one of the destinations. That's where a lot of the people who participated in counterculture, people like Steve Jobs, and actually came to this place to get self-realization. And then in the middle is Kerala. So this is southern India, and it has all these lagoons and backwaters and houseboats that you can visit. So a really beautiful green, verdant place. Then if you go extreme north in India, to the extreme north, you reach the Himalayas, and those are the tallest mountains in the world. And there are two places that many people visit. The first one is called Ladakh. And Ladakh is a wonderful place. It's a repository of Tibetan Buddhism, so Buddhist culture, and also one of the highest places that you can bike in the world. If you have a bicycle, you can ride your bicycle there, and you've got to have strong lungs, of course, but you can just visit and trek and do all kinds of things. Then you have the Kashmir Valley, which is also a very beautiful, verdant place in the lap of the Himalayas. So people usually go to these places, right? So they tend to end up there for the most part. In today's session, we're going to learn about other places that are a bit off the beaten path and maybe a little bit hard to get to, but are rewarding by themselves. So I'm going to actually start with a pop quiz. So you see this area here. This is a triangular circuit, and it gets the maximum number of tourists in India. So what is it called? So A is the tourist triangle, B is the Taj Mahal tour, C is the Golden Triangle, and D the Rajasthan Express. So can you take your best guess, and let's see what what the consensus is, right? So, all right. So let's see what happens.
We're going to give it just a minute here. Rupesh's answers are still coming in. I'll go ahead and give everybody about another 10 seconds to get their final answer in. I'll count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we'll go ahead and share those results for you.
All right. That is awesome. This is a very smart audience, right? So you did get it. That's the answer, the Golden Triangle. So let me just go here and let me highlight the answer. So that's called the Golden Triangle. And it's a place that is full of history and culture that goes back thousands of years. The Taj Mahal itself is about 400 to 500 years old. This is the Qutub Minar. So it's an amazing place to experience. And so you can go to Goa. So many people go to the Golden Triangle, they go see all of these places, then they go to the beach to relax in Goa, or they go to Kerala to hang out on houseboats in the backwaters and lagoons of Kerala. If they're feeling up to it, many people actually make a trip to Ladakh so they can see the Tibetan culture, high altitude biking, and then Kashmir Valley again, where you have houseboats. So it's amazing, amazing place. All of these are amazing places to visit. So now let's get to the unknown places. So I'm going to just show you kind of like a gallery of all these places, and then we'll start taking a look at each of them. And I'm going to have more polls and more questions, and hopefully this will add to the enjoyment, and we have some really interesting stories to tell there. So we'll start with a place that's on the extreme east of India, that's Cherrapunji, which is the rainiest place in the world. Then I'll go into the mountains, to Mashobra, Himachal Pradesh, then to a beautiful, beautiful city of lakes, that's Udaipur, Rajasthan, followed by a beautiful area on the mountains of South India, that's Munnar, Kerala, and also another place in Kerala, which is the Warcala Cliffs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Then we go to a national park area where you can see, elephants and tigers. I'll talk about that, followed by ancient caves where you find cave paintings. So India has cave paintings, and this is a place where you can find the most cave paintings. Then a lake, Pulicat Lake, where you can get to see lots of birds. Then we go to Kurg, which is famous for coffee plantations. And lastly, a waterfall. This is called Dutsagar Falls that are in Goa. So we'll go through all of these places. And I also created a Google Maps. So being a techie, I created, I put pins on a Google map, and then that is shareable. So I'll share that as part of the presentation, and you guys can go out and you can take a look at it, right? So, and also I also have links for each of the places. Okay, let's get started with the first place. This is a place on the extreme east of India that's on the border with China and Burma. And it's a place which is the rainiest place in the world. It's the state in which it's located is called Meghalaya, which means abode of the clouds. So it's in northeast India. It's way off the beaten path. It's a little bit hard to get to, but it's very rewarding. And it's very famous for being the rainiest place in the world. So it gets the maximum amount of rainfall in the world. So it gets about 463 inches of rainfall in the world. And so it is very green, very verdant, filled with this beautiful misty valleys. And it's also famous for living tree root bridges. So there are lots of streams and rivers in that area. And because it's so remote, the people there have figured out a solution, which is that, hey, if plants and trees can grow here, why not use those plants and trees to create bridges? So what they do is that they create bridges, which are basically the roots of trees that have been trained to go across a lattice work. So they use bamboo and other materials to create a lattice work. And then those of you who are gardeners know that you can train trees and plants to grow on any kind of structure. So they use that to create the bridges, right? So these are called living tree root bridges. And they can support up to 50 people at a time. And you can see a double-decker bridge here, right? So there are two tiers to the bridge. And it's also famous for waterfalls. So lots of waterfalls, lots of water, and so lots of waterfalls everywhere. So there are lots of different waterfalls. There are different names there. It's a little bit remote, this place, and it's you have to fly to the nearest cities, so Guwahati or Shillong, which are cities in eastern India, major cities in eastern India, and then you have to drive or take public transport. It's a few hours by drive or public transport, and you can get to these places. And people who visit there, a lot of young Indians go there. They go trekking in the mountains. They go visiting the waterfalls. There are caves in this. You can go caving, and there are short hikes that you can make. It's also famous for birding, so we can go see lots of birds. And so this is one of the places which is one of the treasures of India, a treasure which are off the beaten path, and you can go visit that. The best time to visit this area is in January through May. As many of you know, India has a very hot summer, and it also has a rainy season. And the beginning part of the summer is an okay time to visit because this is very rainy and it's a warm place. But then you can't go in the rainy season, which is June through August, when it rains and there are landslides and other things that happen, right, that block the roads. So the other time to visit is September to December. So there are two seasons to visit Cherrapunji. I have links there, and when we share these slides, you can go take a look at these. So I look for people who wrote blog posts, who have collection of resources for anybody who wants to visit Cherrapunji. So this is one of the places. So with that, we'll go to the second question, so trivia question. So we talked about the living root bridges, which are found in Cherrapunji. how long do you think it takes to train the aerial roots of Ficus elasticus, that's called the, the rubber tree basically, to form the living bridges? So these living tree root bridges, how long does it take? A, 15 years, B, 50 years, C, 100 years, or D, 500 years? So let's see what you think. How long does it take? And those of you who grow trees or who have a green thumb might have an edge here.
So it looks like we have almost everyone who is responding. We're going to give it another 10 seconds. So I'll start counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and we will end this poll and share the results.
15 years, 50 years. Yeah, that seems right. So I think it's very logical. So let me give the answer. I think in general, the majority is right. So it takes 15 years to train the roots to grow across a lattice of the bamboo and other material that are strung between the opposite banks of the stream. So if you look at the stream, it's probably about 30 to 40 feet wide. And so it takes a long time for the roots to grow over to the other side and to grow enough to be able to intertwine and provide that strength. And some of these bridges have been around for 500 years. So there's a record of a bridge at this location going back 500 years. And of course, there's a lot of maintenance that's required, right? So over the years. So that's great. That's great. Very well done, everybody. So then we move on to the next place, also a wet and misty place. This is a place called Munnar in Kerala, that's in South India. And Munnar is very famous for being the largest tea growing region in India. So India has a lot of places where tea is grown. So and for instance, many of you might have heard of Darjeeling tea. So Darjeeling is in northern India and eastern India, and is very famous for that. But Munnar is the place where you get lots of tea. A lot of tea is grown there. And the interesting thing is it's in the middle of these hills called the Nilgiri Hills. They are on the western side of India, and they get all these clouds and rain. It's cloudy and rainy there all the time. And they have these beautiful hill resorts that are right in the middle of the tea estates. And you can go stay in tree houses, for example. So they have like all these tree houses and beautiful romantic place for people to get away from, daily grind, right? That's the kind of place. So how do you get there? You go to the nearest city, which is Cochin. You can fly there. It's an international airport, and also accessible from every other part of India. So I want to say this, that India has very good air travel between most of the major cities. So you should be able to make it to the nearest city. And then it's about 125 kilometers. That's roughly about 70 to 80 miles, 70 miles, I think, by road from Cochin. And people go there to stay at the tree houses. They visit the tea plantations and museum. They don't necessarily have to stay in the resorts. You can go hiking and camping. The hill regions are very, very good, have very, very good trails where you can go hiking and camping, and it's pretty safe. And the best time to visit is in the winter season here. So you can go November to February and then March to June. We don't recommend going in the rainy season, which is when things get really rainy, right? So it gets very rainy and you have landslides and other things that might happen there. So here are some links to websites that you can use to plan your holiday to Munnar if needed. So with that, I'm going to go to the next question. So it's a question about tea. So many of us have drunk tea, right? So Earl Grey, Darjeeling, Oolong, all that stuff. And tea actually comes from China. It originated in China, but then it was brought to South Asia at some point. And then now you have tea cultivation, not only in India, but also in countries like Sri Lanka and other places. So the question is, who brought tea cultivation to South Asia and when? An unknown Indian thousands of years back who kind of hummed it across the Himalayas and then brought it back. The British in the 1830s. The Chinese 1,000 years ago, they brought tea to India. And lastly, Thomas Lipton, a famous tea merchant in the 1890s. So those are your choices. Let's see what you think.
And people are answering very quickly here. So we'll go ahead and give them another 10 seconds again. And I'll start counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
All right. Looks like everybody got it. Yeah, 51% say the British in the 1830s. So I want to go to the answer. That's right. The British is 1830s. So 51% of you got it. So the British East India Company, when it started doing trading between India, China, and Far East, they traded in tea, opium, coffee, indigo, which you heard about last time, and spices. And they brought tea cultivation and tea drinking culture to South Asia from China. It did not exist before that, right? So anytime that you go to an Indian home for tea, or you drink some masala chai or chai tea latte, you have the British to thank for all of that. So very well done. Let's move on to the next one. So next I'm going to go to a place called Mashobra, which is in Himachal Pradesh. That's in North India. And it's a place that is a beautiful place in the mountains that's famous for these beautiful green mountains with fir trees, with streams, and lots of hiking paths. It has lots of resorts, as you can imagine, but it is also the president of India's summer retreat. So for 1 or 2 months every year in the summer, when it gets really hot in India, the president of India goes up to a residence there, and he stays there, and his office moves with him. And that area is also famous as a place for writers and artists residents. It's a quiet place, it's beautiful. So if you want inspiration to strike while you write your next big novel, or paint your next big painting, your next beautiful painting, that's the place to go. And it's not that far from the capital of India. So you go to Delhi, you fly to Delhi, and from Delhi to Shimla, which is the nearest big town, there is a flight or road followed by a short road trip. It's not that far from Shimla. And it's famous for trekking, caving, hiking, birding. It's a birder's paradise. So for instance, if you look at this bird here, this beautiful bird here, they are the Himalayan bulbul, right? So it's actually a singing bird that you can find in that area, right? And the hills that Mashobra is set in are called the Shivalik Hills, right? And the best time to visit is when it's hot. So people who want to escape hot summers in India in the plains, they head to Mashobra and Shimla. They head to this area, that is April to June, when it's the hottest out there. Right. So again, I have links here, and you can go and check it out. So I want to have the next survey question here, next quiz question. So Mashobra is located in the Shivalik Hills in North India, and these are themselves considered the foothills of a mountain range. Can you name that range? A, the Eastern Ghats, B, the Western Ghats, C, the Nilgiris, and D, the Himalayas. So make your pick.
I apologize, Rupesh. I don't think that this question was included in the questions that you had sent me.
Oh, okay.
So I am very, very sorry about that. The next one I have is related to James Bond in this, so it would not be in line with it. So I'm going to take a crack at this, if that's okay. And you can tell me if I am right or wrong.
Sure.
I'm going to say the Himalayas would be my guess.
That's right. Because remember, you have a clue here, which is the Himalayan bulbul, right? Which is a singing bird that you find there.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Thank you. All right. So the Shivalik Hills are basically mountain ranges that form the southern fringe of the Himalayas, and they extend 1,500 miles across northern Pakistan and India. So there's a neighboring country in India. So the Himalayas extend all the way across these two countries, and they have altitudes. These hills have altitudes ranging from 1,500 to 2,000 meters. So a bit higher than the presidential range that you find in New Hampshire. And because they are accessible from the plains of India, which can get really hot in the summer, they are very popular as summer getaways and weekend picnic spots. You can go there take a long weekend, play hooky from the office and go to a place like this. And all across northern India and Pakistan, you find the locals actually go to these places, and these are called hill stations. And there are many of these places. Mashobra is just one of them. And these are places that the British, when they ruled India, found very, very congenial because it reminded them of home, right? Which is, green and rainy and that kind of thing. So it had very English weather. So people, so they used to go there. And then now that infrastructure is developed, a lot of Indians go there too. Okay, so that's one of the interesting fact there. Then I'm going to go next to Udaipur, Rajasthan. And Udaipur is a city in Rajasthan. We talked about the Golden Triangle. It's not that far from the Golden Triangle. It's just a little bit outside that area, but not by far. And it's a beautiful city set on lakes. So there are lots of lakes there, and there are palaces and forts around the lakes. And it's a beautiful romantic place to visit. And somebody called it the Venice of the East. So that's the unofficial name of the town, which is the Venice of the East. So it's a beautiful place. You can go on the lake. It's considered the most romantic spot in India, right? So as you can imagine, there are lots of marriages and movies that are set there. It's a destination wedding place, right? And the lake that you see in there is called Lake Pichola. And on that lake are all these palaces and hotels. So there's a palace that you see at the bottom that's called the City Palace, right? So that's right on the lake. And then there is a hotel and palace that's right in the center of the lake. That's called the Lake Palace. It's in the center of the lake. And it's one of the most famous hotels in the world, most picturesque hotels in the world, also very, very good service and so on. So it's an amazing place to stay and to experience, romance, right? So that's what it's for. So you have, so it's famous for the forts. It's famous for the Lake Palace. It's famous for all the different palaces around town. And but in addition, it also has many gardens and temples. It used to be the capital of a state called Mewar, and the people, the kings who ruled that place, they actually built lots of things there. They built gardens, temples, palaces, forts, all kinds of stuff there. And it's one of those places where which is a beautiful, beautiful place to visit for a vacation. And because it's so beautiful, it's a location for movies and marriages. Lots of movies are shot there, including Indian movies and Western movies. Lots of famous people get married there. You can rent a palace and get married there if you have the money and you can afford it. I think Katy Perry, her first marriage to Russell Brand was in Udaipur, right? So that's, for instance, that's a bit of trivia there. And this is one of the places that is easy to reach. So you can fly directly to the local airport. So there's an airport there, or you can take a road trip or take a train from Delhi or Mumbai. It's very accessible from most major cities in India. And activities there include sunset cruises on the lake, the palace hotels. The food is amazing. All these hotels and around town they have amazing food. They also have handicrafts, lots of handicrafts, and shopping. So you can go shop till you drop. And this is a place because it's set next to a desert. So there's a desert not far away. So it gets super hot in India at that in that period. So the best time to visit is from September to March. Otherwise, it gets very, very hot for anybody to go there. So I have a link to a blog there, and you can see that. Then here's a trivia question. That's the one that Mike was referring to. So Udaipur is a setting for a James Bond movie in the 1980s. And so this movie was set, it had lots of different locations, but the main action was set in Udaipur. And I'm going to give you the names. A View to a Kill, A, B, Never Say Never Again, C, The Living Daylights, and last, D, Octopussy. So let's see what you say.
All right, people are having to think about this one maybe a little bit more, but the answers are coming in here. So we'll count down from 10 and I'll begin at 5 just to keep continuity. So we'll go 4, 3, 2, and 1. And it looks like they're almost evenly distributed.
That's right. That's right. So let me reveal the answer. So you can see like Roger Moore on the screen there, right? So Octopussy is the answer. That's D. It's a 1983 British spy film. It's 13th in the James Bond series. and it stars Roger Moore, right? One of my favorite Bonds as James Bond. And him and his assistant, Vijay, foil the plans of Kamal Khan, who is an exiled Afghan warlord who lives in a hill fort in Udaipur, right? So you can see, Roger Moore and in the Lake Palace. So actually a number of scenes are set in the Lake Palace in one of the really opulent suites there. So if anybody wants to take a good look at Udaipur, you can watch this movie. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move on to the next one. Next, I'm going to a place which is very famous for healing. This is a place called Warcala, which is very famous for cliffs and beaches. So it's in South India in the state of Kerala. And the reason why it's famous is not just for the beaches, but also because it's a major center for Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is the Indian system of holistic medicine. So it's a treatment center where you can go and you can get treated. You can get a sort of like a tune-up, detoxify, those kinds of things, and then hang out on the beach. So in fact, one of a lot of the Ayurveda centers are very right on the beach, right? Very, very close to the beach. So, and these cliffs are actually very old. As you can see, they are red cliffs. And which other place has red cliffs? It's Australia. So they are from the same formation as the red rocks in Australia, like Ayers Rock. So they are from the same formation, from their very, very ancient rocks. And while you're there, you can visit a few places. So there's a backwaters there, which is called Kapil Lake. That's one side is the ocean, the other side is the water. And you can go take a boat ride, and you can get a houseboat and hang out there. So that's one of the places. The other is a very interesting place called Anjingo Fort, which is the first English port in West India. Sorry, I have a typo there. It's the first fort in India that the English established to guide their ships as they came to India from England. So that's one of the famous places there. And so it's a nice place to hang out, get some holistic treatment, detoxify from all the partying that you might have done elsewhere, and then visit a few places. And how do you get there? You fly to Trivandrum, which is the nearest big city, or Thiruvananthapuram, as it's called now. And then you have rail and road links. It's not very far from Trivandrum. And so people come there for Ayurvedic treatment. They hang out on the beach. They visit the fort. They get a houseboat. They hang out. And so it's a great place for that, for people to chill and relax. And the best time to visit is October to February, right? So that's the time. Which is coincident with winter here. So great time to go there. So I have some links and you can go see that. Then I'm going to go to a very exciting place, one of my most favorite places in India. It's called Kabini National Park. It's actually a conglomeration of many parks there. And it's in the southern state of Karnataka. It's not far from Bangalore. And it's famous for wildlife and fishing. Right? So you can go there. There's a tiger sanctuary, actually several of them that you can go visit if you want to see a tiger in the wild, something I'll talk about on May 9th. You can visit a tiger in the wild. They also have elephants, so lots of herds of elephants. In fact, you can get on a boat and go on a safari and see elephants and tigers there. You also have black panthers. So in that park, you see black panthers. You can see this black panther there. Leopards, and the trees, you can go see leopards, black panther. And so it's a great place to visit. Then the other thing that it's famous for is fishing. So there's this big fish here that you see there. It's called the masir. And masir is a game fish. It's in India and South Asia. It's a very well-known game fish. So you can go fishing. I just went to Key West and they were talking about marlins, right? And the old man and the sea and so on. You can go to the Kabini, and in the Kabini River, you can actually fish for masir instead. Right? And there's lots of camping and glamping type of places that you can stay there while you're there. So it's really a great place for you to go see some wildlife, do some fishing, and hang out there. So it's not far from Bangalore or Mysore, which are big cities. Bangalore is an international airport, and you can basically take a road trip there. And so activities there are wildlife safaris. You can do boat safari, as I said, camping, angling, fishing, photography. There's lots of nature hikes there that you can take, get a guide and go nature hiking. You can watch birds, lots of birds in that area. And it's a great place to visit. It's a lot of the young techies in Bangalore actually go there all the time. So, and the best time to visit is October through May. Okay, so that's, falls in the winter to summer season here. All right, so there's a blog link there. There's a great blog I found for anybody who wants to plan a visit there. So next, I have a little bit of a quiz here. So talking about the fish that you find there. So the mahseer, which is part of the tor genus, is a famous game fish found in Asia. Of which fish family is it considered a member? A, trout, B, bass, C, perch, or D, carp? So take your best guess. I know it's a little bit of very deep trivia. Take your best guess and let's see.
All right, it looks like we have about half responded, so we'll go ahead and go 10 seconds from now, and I will begin counting down from 5. So get the answers in. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we'll see the results.
All right. Trout, bass, perch, carp. Oh, wow. 43% said carp, and that's correct. And that's the majority answer. So let me just talk about this kind of fish. So carp are a family of fishes. They are deep-bodied freshwater fish. They can grow to very large sizes. And they're distinguished by these barbels around their mouths. So you can see these barbels around the mouth. And the carp family, which is Cyprindae, is a very large group of fish which are native to Europe and Asia. And which other fish that you're familiar with has barbels? It's your goldfish that you find in your home. The goldfish have the same types of barbels there, which are hanging from their mouth, which are that's a distinguishing characteristic. So goldfish are part of the carp family. All right, great, good going. Then let's move on to the next location. These are called the Bimbit Car Caves. They are in central India. They are Madhya Pradesh. So many of you might have heard of cave paintings in Europe, right? So places like Lascaux have cave paintings which are 50,000 years old, made by our ancestors long back. Similarly, India also has caves which have cave paintings. And this particular place is very famous for forests and caves, and cave paintings have been around from 10,000 years, tens of thousands of years old, to even historic times. So even about 500 years back, 400 years back, people went and painted in those caves, and they used red ochre to make pictures on the walls, right? And it's in the forest, you can go see it. So here's one of the most famous paintings there. So this is about 10,000 years old. This shows a bison attacking a person. So there's a hunter, right? He has bows and arrows, and then the bison is not happy at being hunted. So it's the bison is attacking this hunter while his friends are standing there watching, right? So it's one of the more famous things that you can go see there. So this is a place, this is a little bit remote, as you might imagine. You have to go to the nearest big city, which is a very nice city by itself. It's called Bhopal. And then you can take a road trip from there, which is 45 kilometers. And you can go visit the caves. But along the way, you can also see the historic Sanchi Stupa, which is one of the oldest Buddhist monasteries in the world. So Buddhism originated in India, right? More than 2,000 years back. So the Sanchi Stupa was built around that time. And then you can go to Bhopal city, which is an amazing place by itself. So Bhimbetka, you can visit between October through March. As you can imagine, that's the time when the weather is very congenial for anybody to visit. And Bhimbetka is also on the UNESCO Register of Historic Places to be preserved. So you can go see that there. All right, so that's about Bhimbetka. Next place I want to go to is Pulicat Lake. So this is a lake in South India, which is right by the ocean there. So there's a Bay of Bengal, which is a body of water that's part of the Indian Ocean. And it's a saltwater lake because it's right next to the ocean. It's on the Bay of Bengal, and it's very famous as a bird sanctuary. So it gets birds from all over the world. So birds from Siberia, from Europe, from rest of Asia in the winter, they come down there. And this is a place that birders of India go to visit. The other thing that it's famous for is that there's a barrier island there, which is called Sriharikota Island, which is famous as a rocket launch site. So it's the equivalent of Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy, right in Florida. And if you're lucky, you might get to see a rocket take off while you're on the lake. And it's not far from one of the biggest cities in India, which is Chennai or Madras. And you can land there and you can take a road trip to go there. So the main activities when you go there are bird watching, fishing. You can go see the flamingos there. It has huge flamingo colonies that you can go see. You also get boat tours, and there are all these islands, barrier islands, where you can go camping. So it's a great place to visit for that. So the best time to visit is October through March. And here are some links for you to take a look at if you're interested. All right, so then I'm going to go to a place that is a favorite for many people who live in India to go to. That's called Kurg or Karnataka. And Kurg is also known as the Scotland of India. So it's in the mountains, which are called the Western Ghats. And this is an area which is very famous for coffee plantations. So this is so coffee has been cultivated there for hundreds of years, for a very long time. And then the other thing that it's famous for, of course, there are lots of resorts there, but it's a place called these accommodations called homestays. What is a homestay? It's a private residence where the owner lives and then has guests in their home. So they have guest quarters, and the owners basically cater to the guests. So if you go there, you'll get conversation. You can talk to the host. You can hang out with them. You eat the food they make. This area is very famous for the culture and food. So there are the people who live there are called Kodagu, and then they're very famous for the culture and food. So you can hang out there and you can eat their food, and then go out and visit a coffee plantation and go hiking, trekking, doing all kinds of things there. And it's easy to access. So you can go by road from Bangalore or Bangalore. So Bangalore and Bangalore are the two nearest cities, and you can go there. Activities are coffee plantation tours. You can go trekking in the mountains there. You can go elephant bathing. So in that area, there's lots of there is a place where you can go and hang out with elephants, and splash some water onto them, get into the water and splash some water onto them. Some of you may have seen that happen there. It's also a haven for foodies, so people who want to try out different foods, different types of foods, especially the local food is quite famous. So people go there for weekends or even extended stays, spend summer vacation or winter vacation there. So it's a great time to visit, October through March and September to June. As you can imagine, it rains from June all the way through August, so it's not that easy to go to. So here are some links, and I hope you get to go visit those links and see what it's all about. So with that, I'm going to go to the next survey question. So who brought coffee to Kurg and to India, and when? Right. So the British in the 1800s, B, the French in the 1700s, C, a 17th century Indian saint, and D, Italian prisoners of war during World War II. So let's see what you think.
All right, and the responses are coming in. Looks like maybe everybody had their coffee tonight. Moving quite quickly. So we'll go ahead and give it another 10 seconds here, and I will begin counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
All right, the majority says the French in the 1700s, followed by the British in the 1800s, and lastly, in 17th century Indian saints, 16%, and Italian prisoners of war during World War II. So here's the interesting thing, that the answer is, let me see, a 17th century Indian saint. So actually, I should say that in that area, the British were there, the French were there, there were Italian prisoners of war from World War II when they captured in North Africa. They're also housed in that area. But the answer is this person by the name of Baba Budan, who is a saint from the area. He was a Muslim. He followed Islamic practices, and he made pilgrimages to Mecca. and he was on a pilgrimage to Mecca when he discovered coffee. And coffee grows in Yemen. It's native to Ethiopia, Yemen, that area. Coffee comes from that area. And he really loved coffee. He was probably predating Starbucks and all of us who need a daily fix by, many hundreds of years. And he wanted to bring coffee and plant it in India. And he was not allowed to, because the Arabs who lived there were very guarded about coffee, right? So they didn't want, coffee was their source of income. They didn't want to let anybody carry any seeds. So guess what he did? He was not allowed to carry the seeds, raw coffee beans, which he could plant and make plants. So he took 7 coffee beans and he hid them inside his beard. So he had a long beard. Being a saint, he had a beard, right? A long beard. So he hid them, he wove them into his beard. And then when he sailed on his ship from Port Mocha in Yemen, that's where the mocha comes from, right, in some form. In 1670, they couldn't find it, right? It was all in his beard, and then he brought it to India, and then he planted it in his backyard, and he got coffee beans. And as the plants grew, he gave away the coffee beans to anybody who came by, and soon lots of people were growing coffee. And then when the British came in the 1800s, and they say, hey, these guys already know how to grow coffee. As with tea, they built lots of coffee plantations, right, around that area. So that is one of the really interesting things that you see there. Okay, so yeah, so a 17th century Indian saint, he smuggled coffee beans in his beard and brought it to India to actually start these coffee plantations. So interesting story. Last, I have a spectacular waterfall. This is called the Dutsagar Falls. It's located in Goa, which is famous for beaches, but on the western side, it has all these mountains, which are called the Western Ghats. And they're on the border of another state called Karnataka. So it's very, very close to the border. And these waterfalls, the name Dutsagar means sea of milk, because they are these milky white waterfalls that fall down 600 meters. So they're like extremely long, and they fall down in several stages. And that's not the only waterfall. And the other thing that they're famous for is that there's a railway line that runs right across the falls. So there's a railway line that's going across. So many Indian movies, they actually have shots of the falls seen from the train. Right? In fact, there was a movie in which they actually featured the falls for quite a bit of time. So the Western Ghats are famous for these forests, which are called cloud forests or shola forests. And there's lots of really good places where you can go trekking and hiking. And the interesting thing about these falls is that there is no direct access. You have to go by train and foot, right? So there are 2 places. So either side of the mountain where these falls are located, in Goa, there is a train station, and in Karnataka, there's a train station. And you can get off the train at either of those, and you can hike to the waterfalls. So it's 11 kilometers from Kullem, which is on the Goa side, and 14 kilometers from Castle Rock, which is on the other side. You may be also able to go through the jungle. There's a jeep safari, which is basically taking you on hidden roads or hidden pathways which are not well developed to the falls. And interestingly, younger people, as the train crosses the falls, because the train actually goes across the falls, have been known to risk life and limb by jumping off the train, right? So if the train slows down as it crosses the falls, you can basically, swing your foot off and try to land. And unfortunately, they outlawed it after a few people broke a few limbs, right? And now they have cops stationed there who catch people who try to jump off the train there. But it's a great place to go. Lots of people come there for trekking. So it's a very, very popular destination for young Indians, even young tourists who want to go visit an out of the way place. And they can go and trek in those areas and visit the Shula forest and look at the waterfalls. And they have all these pools of water at the bottom of the waterfalls, and there you can hang out there. The other thing that you can do there is visit spice farms. So there are lots of spice farms where you can go and see some of the spices which are native to India there. And so this is a great place to go if you are into hiking and camping and want to have something that is a nature experience that's out of the way, right? A remote place. So I have some links there, and you can go check it out there. And when we share the slides. I'm going to go to the last survey question here. So talking about a spice plant. So if you go to the spice farm there, you'll see a spice plant there. You see all the spice plants, and this one you'll see. The plant seen in these pictures here is native to the coast of Western India and produces one of the oldest spices known to man. Can you name the spice that is worth more than its weight in gold and motivated many explorers, right? So, and the answers are A, turmeric, B, cardamom, C, garam masala, or D, black pepper. So let's see what you think.
Well, it looks like there is one answer pulling ahead there, and we're just at about 60% people participating. So we'll go ahead and count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
All right, so black pepper wins by quite a bit. So let's see what the answer is. And that's correct. So it's black pepper. So the black pepper comes from this pepper plant, whose picture that you see here, also called Piper nigrum, which grows in the wild on the Malabar coast of Western India. So it grows widely, and then they actually started growing them in earnest. And then the seeds, when they're dried, give you a peppercorn. So the peppercorns come from the seeds of this plant. And pepper was traded to the Romans and Greeks in ancient times from India in return for gold and silver. And in modern times, a lot of the explorers who came to India were looking for black gold, which is pepper, black pepper, right? So it was a most commonly used spice in Europe, and it came from India, actually. So that's very well done, everybody. I'm really glad you got the answer. So with that, I think we're done with the 10 places. Hope you get a chance to visit them. Hope you get a chance to explore these places. At the end, I want to say that I went to Google Maps, and apparently in Google Maps, you can make your own maps and put your own markers. So who knew? And so what I did is that I went and created a Google map where all these places that I've talked about are listed there, and you can go and you can click on them, and through Google Maps you can visit them, and you can see the topography, see pictures, see how to get there, all of those things that you can do with Google Maps. And this will all be shared with you, and you can check all these places out virtually, and I hope you get to travel and visit them.
Well,
all right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much, Rupesh. That was a fantastic presentation. We have some questions that are coming in. If anybody has any questions to ask, they can certainly do so now using the Q&A feature within Zoom. I have one of my own. I'm a bit of a coffee fiend. And actually, it was funny, this weekend I was in Boston, and at the Boston Convention and Expo Center, they were having New England's largest coffee convention. And so while I was there, I enjoyed some Indian monsooned Malabar. And I was wondering, is that coffee come from Kurg that you had mentioned?
Yeah. So I think that area, right, which is down here in the South India, produces that variety of coffee.
Oh, excellent. Well, I guess that jumps to the top of my list here for places to visit. So we have a few questions as well as compliments. And so we've had one person who says, thank you, Rupesh, who providing this cruise directing for the travel. And there was someone who was wondering where you are from in India, and she asked if most of the people from where you live are as joyful as you. She says you've given an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Thank you for the compliment. So I'm from this place right here. You can see that's Hyderabad. Okay, so I grew up there, and then I went to college down here in Chennai. So down here, so that area. And I should say that I'm probably a good advertisement for the people of Hyderabad, who are known to be very even-tempered and laid back. right? So that's how we are. That's how we roll, I should say.
Well, everybody's saying you have a lot of energy, so I guess maybe contradicting laid back. So one question that came up was, why do some people say Bombay and others Mumbai?
That's a very good question. So the city itself takes its name from a local goddess who was called Mumba Devi. So she was the goddess. But when the city grew, it was founded by the British who actually took over. Actually, it was first the Spanish, and it was given to I think, one of the British kings as dowry. Right. So, and then the British took over, and they couldn't pronounce Mumba Devi, so they changed it to Bombay. And it was Bombay for a long time. And recently, it has been changed to Mumbai. Just, I think it was in the 1990s that they changed the name to Mumbai.
And we have another question, a little bit more practical on the travel side, asking what is the best airline from Boston or the Boston area to travel to India?
Oh, that's an excellent question, actually. So from Boston, the two airlines, there's like several airlines that travel to India. The one that a lot of people use is Emirates. So Emirates, there's a 14-hour flight from Boston to Dubai, and then from Dubai to any parts of India. So it has very good connectivity. There are also other airlines, Middle Eastern airlines. So the Etihad is another one. And then, of course, you have the European airlines which fly through Europe. And then from Europe, you can go to most major cities in India.
And I know that there's a lot of connections once you get to where you're going to in India. There might be additional connections. Do you want to say anything about rail travel or? Sure.
So Indian Railways is one of the largest railway networks in the world. You also have nowadays excellent air travel, air links. So most of the major cities have very good airports, and even the smaller cities have very good airports, and there's lots of connectivity. So India has invested in airports in the last 20-30 years. So a lot of these airports are brand new, they're and modern. So I would say that both air travel and rail travel are great ways to see India.
And a question about the Warcala cliffs, are they currently eroding?
Yes. They're many tens of billions of years old. So they are the leftover part of a huge rock formation from when a lot of the continents were joined together. So they're very, very old cliffs.
Well, that looks like it is the run of questions. The compliments are just pouring in, though. Everybody really enjoyed the program and is thanking you for your wonderful presentation, Rupesh. And I would like to add my thanks to that as well.
Thank you.
And I will invite everybody to join us in May for our next program on May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd. Vineet Kumar, who had given our first presentation, will be following with the story of Paisley and how to draw it. And then Rupesh will be back the following Monday, May 9th, to talk about the Bengali tiger. And I did want to also direct everyone's attention. I put in the chat a link to Rupesh's presentation, but we will also have that available on our library webpage. If you go to burlingtonpubliclibrary.org, under programs, you'll see a page for the Discover India series. And so that link to that presentation is there, where we'll also be showing or hosting the recording from tonight's program. So thank you again so much, Rupesh. Thank you.
Thank you
to everyone at IAGB who's helped us put this program series together. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again in May. Take care.
Take care. Good night. And thank you for coming.